You know, like I grew up, I'm a man. I can understand that we can not all agree on stuff and still move forward and still talk around a campfire and be cool, go fishing. And you don't got to agree on everything. That's kind of what's wrong.
Hey, but you're saying
not
that
wrong,
each
but
of us will agree with one party or the other, right? Even
I'm
though they
just,
kind of
you know what the
themselves.
fuck I'm saying, man.
You'll agree with one of them right now. Just being
Yeah.
facetious.
Hey, can I, two things if I may. You've got a channel?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What's your name?
My name is Dustin. My real name is Dustin.
And the channel
is Bushwhacking History in Buffalo. I live in Buffalo. Was born and raised in Buffalo. It's a really cool city. I think it's got history before mainstream history. That's kind of what I do. I got a lot of books that I'm grateful to have from my family, my great grandmother and my grandfather, whose house this is right now, that I'm in the process of buying, taking a note out on, mortgage, whatever, a death note, mortgage.
Being a slave for,
Yeah.
a slave to that house.
Hey, sometimes you got to play ball with Babylon, right? We're in, not of.
Amen.
So
I know, man. I'm just mocking people you probably don't know about yet on YouTube.
no, I saw. I've been around for a while. I mean, you might think I kind of play the
people
wall.
are sick of
a
me
little bit.
saying his name, but I was doing an impression of him.
I get a little reclusive sometimes, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I could be a little of an
way to be.
introvert.
Hey,
so yeah, Jack, I do have a channel. I got interested in this alternative history research with a lot of these, like with the Tartarian stuff, right? Like, whoa, what's Tartaria? What the fuck is mud flood? I got these buildings in my city that people are calling all Tartarian buildings. Meanwhile, I have these old art and architecture books from the early 1900s that specifically show old world classical architecture or Gothic. And it's like, guys, pump the brakes. It's not all Tartarian. It wasn't all a global mud flood or realm-wide mud flood, in my opinion. There's a lot more nuance. There's a lot more going on. And that just seemed to become like a brand. And when I did a little bit of an about face on that, I got a little bit of heat for it. There's always truth in a little bit in a myth, right? There are things that are mud floods. It could be a lahar,
right?
It could be certain. There's a lot of different mechanisms that cause what people term to be mud flood. Tartarian buildings are not, they're Romanesque, or there's a specific term for them. So I was starting to align with, we got to have these terms hammered down if we're going to be taken on an even playing field with the mainstream, because I'm not down with being like antagonistic to them. If we're going to be taken seriously in this alternative history niche, we got to level up a little bit and be a little bit more sophisticated with these terms, and can't call a Romanesque building Tartarian architecture. You're just going to get laughed at.
We do know, like, we can use the logic that the Sphinx had to be to an extent dug out. Like, it was all plain level of desert that you had to dig down to get to the Sphinx legs. And we know that those, what island is it with the statue heads? Like, they weren't just
Easter Island.
They have a whole, they have a whole body under the ground. But there's a different type of catastrophe compared to whatever got the land that high on those. There's another
lot.
type.
There's many different mechanisms. There's many. It could just
there's the
sedimentation.
magnetic shift that destroys the world's surface and resets it, and it wasn't that, because you wouldn't find the Sphinx when that happened.
Or it could have been more local events. Like, again, I'll cite an example like a lahar, and if you zoom out a little bit, you see that, oh, it's in a volcanic zone. And some of these buildings, there's direct examples of where whole towns got flooded by a lahar or by a flash flood that has a lot of sedimentation. And not to mention civilization itself, they're based around rivers and river deltas, and they flood on cyclical patterns, you know? So what people term to be mud flood in this, oh, it was just one cataclysmic event. It's like, no, there's way more going on. And this is Romanesque architecture, not Tartarian. Let's get a little bit more defined with it. And
oh my goodness. You guys are killing us all. We're all gonna fall asleep.
We're trying to have a conversation like people.
Oh my gosh. You guys are doing some weird stuff.
Didn't mean that. Give you free content on your show.
Can I end that?
Be careful with that.
Yeah.
Can I tail that off? Can I tail that off?
Yeah, go for it.
So when I got a little bit more defined with that, and I kind of did an about face from Tartaria and making that distinction at least, right? And I'll cite homie Woody Nichols and Ewar, because I've had a couple conversations with them and an episode we did. And we're not saying that something is drastically wrong with our history in the mainstream and the bookends of academia and higher learning and peer review and all that. But we do understand that those processes need to happen in order for there to be watershed moments, right? So we can't be completely antagonistic to it. We can't just also call everything Tartaria mudflood and we had free energy from Antiquitech. Because that also breeds the whole mob mentality of we got to get it back, and I'm wholly against that. Okay, if you don't have a better system to replace it with, you better pay the vig. Anyway, we're not saying that there's something drastically wrong with our history. For example, what I'm doing here in Buffalo, I think that there were Vikings through here in the Viking Age, trading on the trade routes back to the Byzantine Eastern Empire. That's not cited in mainstream history, but I think that that's part of what I'm doing. I think the Dutch were here. I think the Dutch followed the Vikings, and there were civilization here more than the natives pre-Columbian exchange. And there's got to be evidence for it. I think the New World is actually the true Old World. And I'll shout out to this dude, Old World Florida. He does a lot of good work too down there.
Oh my goodness.
Gravy.
Berserker.
As long
One
as
day.
it's not Jacksonville.
One day we'll go into this.